Oh, yeah. Welcome in January 22nd, 2025. Make sure we get that right here today on the program. Welcome in. Buckle up. I think I said that on yesterday's show, but you're going to want to do it here again today. And we're glad that you're here because we got a lot of Suns basketball to get into here today on the program. So I hope you are all having a fantastic start to your Wednesday. We've got you here on the lunch break for the next 2 hours. And we'll pass things off to Jim Rome at the top of the 1 o'clock hour. But you know the drill. You know what we do around here. You know where we're going to go on today's show because you're not living under a rock. You've seen what's happened. So let's not waste any time. Let me make sure we can hit the magical button here.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
The Suns have made it official. Although it's unofficially official. But it's official. Because they made a move yesterday that nobody thought they should make, I think. I don't know if we thought they would make the move, but they did. They parted with the 2031 unprotected first-round pick. The only first-round pick that, when we got off the air yesterday, was available to this team. And I get it. It is a challenge to understand how NBA trades, the NBA salary cap, and draft protections work. I understand. We are going to do our best here today on this program to guide you through everything that we've seen over the last 16 hours or so. Because on my way home yesterday, the news broke that the Phoenix Suns called up the Utah Jazz, and they swung a deal. The 2031 unprotected first-round pick is going to Utah, and in exchange, 3 first-round picks are coming back to Phoenix. Those first-round picks are in 2025, 2027, and 2029. 3 first-round picks that have swaps and all sorts of protections on them in exchange for the 2031 unprotected pick. That's what they actually did yesterday. The Phoenix Suns turned 1 pick, 1 asset that they had, 1 first-round pick, into 3. And what it did yesterday by acquiring picks in 25, 27, and 29 is it unlocked their ability to move their next 6 picks that they currently have. Because remember, they have picks in 26 and 28 and 30, but you can't trade picks in consecutive years. So because of all the moves that the team had already been, the moves they've already done, Bradley Beal, Royce O'Neal, all the moves that we've seen them make over the last couple of seasons, they were limited to the 2031 unprotected first is the only pick that they could move. And they've been holding on to it. They've been keeping it close. Not sure if they were going to move it. You know that on this show, we were against them moving it, but here we are. So the 2025, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, all those picks are available to be moved in a trade. Obviously, they need to stay true to the rule of not trading back-to-back picks, but all of those picks are open to potentially be asked for in a deal. It is a decision by this team. By trading the 2031 unprotected first-round pick, don't look at just what they got in this deal. Look at what the move itself signifies. Look at what the move itself tells us. This team is going all in. And I don't know if all in does it enough justice. I think moving forward, we are going to look at what the Suns are doing right now in this window, in this current championship cycle that they seemingly still believe that they are in. We might, moving forward, refer to what other teams do if they continue to model themselves after the Phoenix Suns, although I don't know who's going to do that. But if somebody tries to take a page out of the Phoenix Suns book and do what the Suns have done over and over and over again under Matt Ishbia going all in, we might call it going Matt Ishbia, going full Suns. All in doesn't do it justice. This team has traded every single tradable asset that has been in front of them since Matt Ishbia got here. This team has a $168 million projected tax bill for this season. This is the scene in the movies where the guy is playing poker and he goes all in, and it's not just the cash and the chips on the table, but he takes off his watch, he takes off his wedding ring, he is turning to friends that he's with, asking them for cash and for jewelry and for watches. There isn't enough stuff that Matt Ishbia can put on the table that is the poker game that he is playing right now. It is a new definition of all in. The Suns by doing this and what is going to come. And don't worry, we've got 2 hours to unpack what is next for the Phoenix Suns because there is a lot. Get ready, everybody. This is not the only move that the Suns are going to make. Producer Dylan, I need you on full social media watch. I don't care if we blow through every break on the show today. It is more important for you to be paying attention to whether or not the Suns do something else because it could happen at any moment. There's a reported 4 or 5 team trade. It could happen at any second now. The Suns are pushing the chips and pushing themselves to a level that we have never seen a team go to before in an effort to win a championship. And this is all to get one guy. This is all to put together one dream. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Jimmy Butler. The Suns yesterday, by trading the 2031 unprotected first-round pick, while not directly going to the Miami Heat, will directly lead to the Suns acquiring Jimmy Butler. And so the Suns crossed over a line I didn't think they were going to cross, and quite frankly, didn't think they should have crossed. Name me the last team that is outside the playoff race the way the Suns are right now, that is at 500 and is making the type of bold, audacious moves that the Phoenix Suns just made yesterday and are going to continue to make over the next coming days. Now, there is a unique take that I want to share today, potentially. While I disagree with the decision to trade the 2031 unprotected first, and while I will ultimately disagree with getting Jimmy Butler and everything else that we're going to see transpire over the coming days and weeks before the February 6th NBA trade deadline, I can give credit where credit is due. This is a creative way to turn one asset into multiple assets to get you out of this jam. Because if you sat down in the Suns front office and you made the decision, we are trading the 2031 unprotected first-round pick, we are okay with making that decision, I love this approach. I love turning one asset into 3 and giving yourself more ways out of this situation, because it's not just Bradley Beal's contract that they have to worry about. It's Jusuf Nurkic's contract that they're trying to shed. They're trying to acquire more players, and they know that they can't aggregate salaries. They have to get creative. The way you get creative is you dangle draft picks in front of teams. Well, the Suns had a 2031 unprotected first, and they had 1 second-round pick in this year's draft. That's not enough to address everything that the Suns want to address. And so what the Suns chose to do yesterday is, we're going to be able to trade for Jimmy Butler. We're also going to be able to trade Jusuf Nurkic. We're also going to have other assets at our disposal to potentially get other pieces for us. You just open up all the doors, all the avenues to do more than just trading for Jimmy Butler. So it was very creative. I can disagree with the ultimate decision. I can disagree with the path that this team is going to take. But I can applaud the creativity to trying to find their way out of this, for trying to think outside of the box. And truthfully, I think Matt Ishbia has ripped up the box. He's not interested in even looking at the box. He is interested in doing things his way. He is interested in doing things the way that he thinks the Suns need to do things right now in order to win the championship. And we've got a bunch of different places to pull on today. There are multiple pieces of string that are hanging off of this story, off of this ball of yarn that is what the Phoenix Suns did yesterday. And we are going to try over the next 2 hours to pull on every single piece, every single string of yarn that is hanging off right now, because there's a lot. They crossed a line yesterday. They crossed a line that was the difference between seeing this through and then making adjustments in the summer, or completely taking it off the table. We can officially say that yesterday, January 21st, 2025, the Phoenix Suns took off the table the big red button. It doesn't exist anymore. You're not going to hear us talk about it anymore as a realistic option. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So anybody out there that wants this team to reset, that would be okay with the pain that a rebuild would endure because you are not cool with what you have seen so far and you didn't want to give up even more assets and acquire Jimmy Butler, that is over today. It was over yesterday. It's done. It doesn't exist anymore. The red button is gone. The Suns yesterday, by turning the 2031 unprotected into 3 assets that are pick swaps, mean for the next 7 years, the Suns don't control their own first-round pick. They told you yesterday what they think about those of you, myself included, who wanted to press the red button, that wanted to hit the reset switch. They're not buying it. They're not interested. They are going down a different path. And so I want to hear from you today, 480-864-1060, because we are going to pull on this ball of yarn all day long. And we've got over on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. That's another way for you to hop into the show as well. We've got Michael over there who says, no matter what happens, Suns really going for it. Good to see. That is an opinion that I have not seen everywhere today. Michael, you might be the only person that I've seen have that opinion today, that it's good that the Suns are doing this. It's good that the Suns are pushing their chips into the middle. I appreciate the optimism and I appreciate the opinion, but I'm not sure that I've seen a lot of people have that take here today. I've seen a lot of people have the take of, sure this is what we're going to do? Have you watched what's happened the last couple weeks? Have you watched this basketball team? But yesterday, the Suns made a statement. So now, here is the most important question. Where do we go from here? They've crossed the line. The 2031 pick out the door. So now, what is next for the Phoenix Suns? You can take a pretty good guess, and it's not really a guess as to what that is, but we'll explore that next year on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back in to this Wednesday edition of the lunch break. We appreciate you being here. And I got to tell you, it's days like this that you get into this business, that I enjoy being able to talk with you in front of this microphone and have these conversations, because there are so many layers to all of this, and there's so much to sift through. You've seen what other radio hosts in this market are reporting. You've seen what national reporters are reporting. You've seen the back and forth, the he said, she said, not really sure what is true and what isn't. This is what makes it fun, is trying to figure out what really is going on here, because the Suns yesterday, if you didn't see, I don't know how you didn't see at this point and you're listening to the show, but maybe you haven't seen, they traded the 2031 unprotected first-round pick, and they got 3 first-round picks back in exchange. Now, this segment of the program, and we've got a lot to do here today, but this portion of the show is going to directly focus on what is next and where we go from here. Well, I want to take you, and we're going to play a lot of him today because he had some really, I think, good things to say and very insightful. Bobby Marks of ESPN put out a YouTube video on the ESPN NBA YouTube channel last night about the Phoenix Suns trade. And so let's start with him. We'll go to him first. Here is what he says is next for the Phoenix Suns.
So what is next with Phoenix? We'll certainly keep an eye on Bradley Beal. We'll keep an eye on Jusuf Nurkic. Do I think Miami now all of a sudden says, you know what? We're going to take those 3 first-round picks with the $111 million owed to Bradley Beal. I think that's not going to happen. It's still a non-starter with the money. But that doesn't mean there's a third or fourth team saying, you know what, we'll take a player with one of those picks, and the 2 picks go with Beal somewhere.
So our focus is on Bradley Beal and Jimmy Butler, obviously. Listen, no offense to Bobby Marks here. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what the Phoenix Suns are up to here. It's what they've been up to for the last couple of weeks. It's why the Jimmy Butler rumors would never go away, because they didn't want them to go away. They showed you that yesterday. But now there's some back and forth reporting that leaves us kind of in limbo, because Mark Stein, who does a great job covering the NBA, put out a report earlier today that said sources with the knowledge of the Suns' thinking insisted that Phoenix made its Tuesday trade with Utah without a specific follow-up move lined up. Are you kidding me? You traded, one, the only real true asset you had left to move in the 2031 unprotected pick, but 2, one of the more lucrative trade assets that could be available anywhere. A 2031 unprotected first from the Phoenix Suns. Folks, do you understand how far away 2031 is? I will be 36 years old when we get to 2031. Producer Dylan, can you please enlighten me on how old Devin Booker will be, Kevin Durant will be, Jimmy Butler would be in 2031? Because I'm here to tell you, the conclusion that you're going to come to when you look up their ages of where they're going to be is they're not going to be playing basketball, aside from Devin Booker, but he's going to be in the latter stages of his career. A 2031 unprotected first-round pick from the Phoenix Suns might be the most lucrative asset in the NBA. With all of the chips that are being pushed into the middle, that asset, unprotected, could be number 1, could be number 17, could be anywhere in between, and it doesn't matter. It's going to Utah regardless, at least for now. That's what you moved yesterday. You don't do that. You don't make that type of move without knowing what you're going to do with the return. Please, Producer Dylan, tell me how old Kevin Durant is going to be. Durant's going to be 42 years old. Beal's going to be probably 38, 39, because he's a couple years younger than Durant. And then Booker's going to probably be in his mid-30s. Yeah, 34. Are you kidding me? Think about what the Phoenix Suns are going to look like in 2031 and tell me that the Suns didn't do that yesterday knowing exactly what they were doing. If they didn't, if this report is true, that they didn't, and there's reporting that refutes this reporting that says you don't make this move without knowing what you're doing, because of course not. You don't trade an asset of this caliber. You don't trade an asset, the only asset that you have, truthfully, if you don't know what you're going to do, and you don't make a trade where you're turning 1 pick into 3 picks unless there's more coming. And so where do we stand right now? Well, there is a rumored 4-team trade out there that might need a 5th or a 6th team to make it all work. But the main teams involved would be Miami, it would be Milwaukee, and it would be Phoenix. And just know the way this would end up is Bradley Beal would end up in Milwaukee, because reportedly another radio host here in town reported that Milwaukee is one of the teams that Bradley Beal would be willing to move his no-trade clause for, so we'll take that at face value here today. So he would go to Milwaukee. Chris Middleton and some pieces might go to Miami, and Jimmy Butler would end up in Phoenix, and then you would need a fourth team to kind of help move stuff around to make sure everybody's cap compliant, everybody works within the aprons that they're under, right? It's just to make sure everything is all just buttoned up. But that's where we're at today. The Phoenix Suns made their move yesterday to acquire the assets to be able to move a Jimmy Butler deal over the finish line, to get tradable first-round picks that would be enticing to either a third or fourth team that needs to be added into this deal. So that's what this is about. The Phoenix Suns yesterday made a commitment. They made a decision. We want to end up with Jimmy Butler. They have decided that they want out of the Bradley Beal business, and they feel their best way out, their best way of turning this around, their best way of trying to go for it this year is to add Jimmy Butler. That's where we go from here. Between now and February 6th, we see if the Phoenix Suns will be able to get this deal over the finish line. Now, do yourself a favor. Keep an eye on if Jimmy Butler's playing or not. That will tell you how close this is to being concluded. Although, at this point, how on earth is Jimmy Butler playing in basketball games? Now, Milwaukee, I believe there was snow, so their game is canceled tonight. So lots of time to work on the phones. Lots of time to be able to maybe get this deal over the finish line. But this is where hug watch in baseball is what it's referred to as. When you see players in the dugout around trade deadline season giving each other hugs, you know that player's out. Keep an eye on playing status for Jimmy Butler. But the Phoenix Suns have made a decision. Definitive. Leaving no questions. You may want to throw a report at me that says no, they didn't do this yesterday with anything specifically in mind. That's nice. That's a nice way to try and not get. It's a nice way to not lose it. You're trying to not lose a trade. You're trying to not get fleeced. You're trying to facilitate multiple moves. And we're going to tell you what some of those multiple moves are, because this is not just Jimmy Butler and this is not just Bradley Beal. I think there's something else that could be at play here. And it involves a center who's still dealing with the flu. So by trading one pick into three, the Suns are trying to make all of the moves that you thought couldn't happen basically all at once. And so Bradley Beal being willing to move his no-trade clause is step one. Now, the reports are that they still have not gone to Bradley Beal. And so that's another inclination as to where this is at. If Jimmy Butler's still playing basketball and the Suns still have yet to tell Bradley Beal, hey, would you be interested in moving your no-trade clause to go to blank city? If those two things haven't happened yet, we might still be a long way away. The Suns might still be looking for that fourth or fifth dance partner to go along with Milwaukee and Miami. And maybe that's not what the end result of this looks like. Remember a couple weeks ago when I said, hey, trading Bradley Beal's really complicated, and trading for Jimmy Butler is really complicated, and the Suns don't have the assets. When we are all said and done here, think of all of the hoops that this franchise is going to jump through to get Jimmy Butler. And ask yourself if it's worth it. Ask yourself that question when we're all said and done. We told you how difficult this was. We told you how challenging it is to make all of this happen. Yesterday was like step A in what's going to go through the entire alphabet before we're done. And so the Phoenix Suns have decided, and I used the term in the first segment, unofficially official. Their solution to all of this is Jimmy Butler. Their solution to everything that has happened up until this point and what they think needs to happen over the remaining 40 games of the regular season is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler fixes all of this. Him, along with Nick Richards, along with whatever else the team might be able to do in terms of moving players, Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic, I've seen it all. I have seen every single rumor you can think of at this point that involves the Phoenix Suns. They have decided that this is the path that they want to take. And so all eyes are focused on a rumored 4-team deal that would be Milwaukee, Miami, Phoenix, and a fourth team that would probably involve two of these three picks at least going out the door along with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal ending up in Milwaukee, some pieces going back to Miami, and another fourth team helping facilitate this all by making contracts work and money work and picks work and doing it all. You need a PhD to be able to understand NBA trades. No other sport does trades this way. It's fun. It's chaotic, but it's fun. And the Phoenix Suns are at the center of the NBA landscape right now. They are at the center of it all. Producer Dylan, are we okay right now? Nothing's happened. Jimmy Butler's still a member of the Miami Heat. Bradley Beal's still a member of the Phoenix Suns. We are okay. We've made it through 29 minutes of the program without anything happening. That's great to hear. You just never know these days. We are on just it. I've said it multiple times over the last couple of weeks. We are all systems go. We're paying attention everywhere. If I could have all of the screens in here on different Twitter feeds, different social media platforms, we'd have them everywhere. We would be ready to go because it could happen at a moment's notice. One pick into 3, and now all eyes are on getting Milwaukee, Miami, Bradley Beal, reportedly all on board with what this team is trying to do. So that's the path forward. That's where we go from here. That is the next step for the Phoenix Suns. They might sidetrack while they're working on that, but that's the next big step for this team. If it's okay with all of you, I'm just going to take a brief 60-second timeout from basketball. I want to have one football conversation. Truthfully, I want to have one football conversation. The rest, Suns today, obviously so. But I want to have one football conversation today. Because we learned yesterday that a player has decided to return to play in 2025. Could that player make sense for the Arizona Cardinals? I'll tell you who it is, and if he makes sense, next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. I'm going to take a quick break from basketball because we got a lot of it here today on the show. And make sure you download the KDUSAM 1060 app so you can take us with you on the go. We'll get back into the basketball in about 15 minutes from now because it is very clear what the Suns decided to do yesterday. And I'll tell you in 15 minutes, and you can probably guess by the way I've been talking whether or not that I think this is the right decision. So that coming from me in about 15 minutes from now. But how would you like a 9-time Pro Bowler? How would you like a guy who played in the postseason this past year? How would you like a guy who was a defensive player of the year? How about a guy who has over 100 career sacks? How about a guy who this year had 2 sacks in the postseason game that he played in, 6 for the season? Guy that's an edge rusher. That sounds like the resume of somebody that would make a ton of sense for the Arizona Cardinals. Well, that player who was a Defensive Player of the Year winner in 2016, who has 107.5 career sacks, who's a 9-time Pro Bowler, who had 2 sacks in a postseason game this year, 6 sacks for the entire season, would be one Khalil Mack. And after the Chargers were bounced in the first round of the playoffs by the Houston Texans, Mack said after his 11th season in the NFL that he was going to take some time to mull over whether or not he wanted to return for a 12th season. He's 33 years old. Going to be an unrestricted free agent for the first time in his career. Well, after taking that time, he has decided, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN, that he is going to play in 2025. And we on this show have told you over and over and over again how important edge is for the Cardinals this offseason. And when a guy that has those types of credentials, who has that type of production, and he matches up with the position of need, it is very easy to start dreaming of what Khalil Mack might look like in an Arizona Cardinal uniform. Now, I'll throw a little cold water on this because Mack earlier this month said that if he did decide to continue playing, he thought his best chance of winning was in LA. Did the first round exit change that? Will the money change that? I don't know. But this guy had 6 sacks last season. Now, if you look at his stats over his career, he had 17 the year before. He had 8 in 2022. He had 6, 9, 8.5, 12.5 in his time with Chicago. So if you remember, spent the first 4 years of his career with the Raiders and was all over the place. 4, 15, 11, 10.5. Those are the sack numbers his first 4 years. The Raiders didn't want to pay him. Back and forth, trade him to Chicago. 12.5, 8.5, 9, 6. The Bears thought this was the move that was going to put us over the top. This was the edge rusher that was going to take us to the next level. He put up some great numbers, some solid production numbers, but didn't take them over the top. Okay, now he goes to the Chargers, and in the last 3 years, combines for 31 sacks in 3 seasons. And had that big year in 2023 where he had 17 sacks, but only 6 this past year. So would you want Khalil Mack as a member of the Arizona Cardinals? Here is my warning to you all. Here is the thing that needs to be your North Star. We told you how big of a deal it was that the Arizona Diamondbacks signed Corbin Burnes. We told you what the Diamondbacks were getting in Corbin Burnes. You'll understand the comparison that I'm making here in a second. You signed into a 6-year, $210 million deal, the largest contract that the team has ever given out. And we told you, you're not getting a guy on the back 9 of his career. You're not getting a retread. You're not getting somebody who's mailing it in and just wants to be in the nice weather in Arizona. You are getting somebody in his prime. You are getting somebody that has multiple Cy Youngs potentially in his future. That's how good he is. He can put together Cy Young caliber seasons moving forward. This is not signing Madison Bumgarner. Signing Khalil Mack would be like signing Madison Bumgarner. It might work out. You might have a season or a season and a half where you go, okay, it's not bad. But overall, you're not getting what you think you're getting in Khalil Mack. And so for me, looking at the pass rush options that are going to be available, I'd like to go in a different direction. We talked yesterday about Josh Sweat. We've talked about Ojulari and Chase Young as potential options who we knew were going to become free agents this offseason. I would much rather play in that sandbox than sign a 33-year-old who's coming off only a 6-sack season. His consistency has been all over the place. I mean, think about it. Before the 17-sack year in 2023, he hadn't had a double-digit sack year since 2018. So are you getting double-digit sacks? Is that what you're getting? Because that's what you need. You need big-time production. You need a slam dunk home run. Now, if Khalil Mack is option 2 or option B as part of a pass rush group, and there's a bigger fish that gets brought in, and they also draft and develop somebody, I can get on board with that. But if Khalil Mack is going to be your home run swing, if Khalil Mack is going to be the guy that you are going to wrap your whole offseason around, I say, no thank you. I say that would be like the Diamondbacks signing Madison Bumgarner. Getting a guy at the latter stages of his career, hoping potentially that he can tap into the magic of his past. And that, more often than not, doesn't work out. The plan is simple. You swing for the big fish. You might not get a bite. You might not get a bite on the line, but you swing for the big fish. And then you go out and you sign a couple guys and you draft a guy or two and you build out a well-rounded group that is a mix of veterans who are still in their prime and young pass rushers that you hope you can develop into your Khalil Mack, that you hope you can develop into your Chris Jones, that you hope you can develop into your Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. That should be the path. Monty Ossenford has a pretty decent track record of drafting players, and the development process is the next step in that. So why not continue to take swings in the draft? So Khalil Mack, big name, got the credentials, 9-time Pro Bowler, 107.5 career sacks, former Defensive Player of the Year. He was a Defensive Player of the Year nearly a decade ago. Just like when the Diamondbacks signed Madison Bumgarner, he was a World Series and postseason hero a long time ago. He was multiple seasons removed from being the postseason hero. Don't do what teams in this state seemingly always do. They go for the big name. They go for the big splash. And they get the over the hill, the retread. And that's not to say that Khalil Mack wouldn't come here and be able to produce a similar type season that he had a year ago. But that's not what the Cardinals need. The Cardinals need big-time production. They need a 17-sack season. They need to have one of the elite pass rushers in the NFL. That's what their defense is missing. He got to Arizona, that being Madison Bumgarner, in 2020 and pitched his age 30, 31, 32, and part of his age 33 season with the Diamondbacks. Do you know the year? So remember, I'm telling you this. 2020 is when Bumgarner got to Arizona. Do you remember the year in which he won the NLCS MVP and the World Series MVP and was dominant? Went 4-1 with a 1.03 ERA in 7 games, including starting 6 of them when he was a World Series champion. Do you remember when that was? That was 2014. The Diamondbacks signed him 6 seasons later, thinking that they could get something similar to that. Don't look at Khalil Mack and expect him to be 17-sack Khalil Mack. Don't expect him to be double-digit sack Khalil Mack. Don't expect what the Diamondbacks expected when they got Madison Bumgarner. So this is a thanks but no thanks for me. Big name, has got the credentials, but doesn't fit the timeline. At least he doesn't fit the timeline as the top-tier option. He fits the timeline as part of a group. He fits the timeline as a complementary piece, but he does not fit the timeline as the top-tier big-time free agent signing. Now, we're going to do this all offseason long. Every pass rusher that is available, that has a name value, that has production, that has a resume, we are going to look at through the lens of, do they fit the Arizona Cardinals? And Khalil Mack making a declaration yesterday, at least according to reports, that he is coming back in 2025, of course, is going to put him on a short list. I'm telling you, I'm good. No, thank you. I don't need the Cardinals to have their version of Madison Bumgarner. I need them to find their Corbin Burns. That's what the Cardinals need to do at pass rush. Find their Corbin Burns, not their Madison Bumgarner. Khalil Mack would be the Madison Bumgarner. Who the Corbin Burns might be? Could be a Josh Sweat. Could be making a trade for somebody else. But it's not Khalil Mack. 480-864-1060 is the phone number if you want to hop in. We wrap up hour number one here on the other side. They haven't done it yet, but it's clear what the Suns are going to try to do here between now and February 6th. Is it the right decision? I'll give you my answer next. It's the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back in. Wrapping up hour number one of the lunch break. Appreciate you being here on a big day in Suns land. Today is one of the days we will look back on as the start of a chapter for the Phoenix Suns. The Jimmy Butler chapter, I believe, started yesterday when the Suns called up Utah and swung a deal that turned one unprotected first-round pick into three protected first-round picks that are swapped, and it could be a bunch of different teams. I am not going to try to explain to you how it works. Here's what I will tell you. The Suns got three picks. When the draft rolls around, they're going to get the worst pick out of a bunch of teams that own a claim to that pick. So there's a bunch of teams that will just move first around, and the Suns will always get the worst end of that deal. That is what the Suns signed up for yesterday when they traded the 2031 unprotected first for three first-round picks. And they called up the Utah Jazz. And you know what they did yesterday? Well, don't hear it from me. Hear it from Bobby Marks.
And if you think Phoenix is not all in and they're going to pivot away from Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, You are wrong. This trade just rubber stamps it that Phoenix is in business to try to go swing for the fences and try to turn around a season where they're hanging on for dear life for one of their final playing spots.
This team is battling it out right now to be in the play-in tournament. And yesterday, they made a move to push everything they own into the middle of the table. They yesterday showed that they continue to believe that this is fixable, that this is the right way out of this mess, because that's what it is. Not calling it a mess is being disingenuous. The Phoenix Suns are a mess. The Phoenix Suns this season should not be, to quote Bobby Marks, hanging on to one of the final spots of the playoffs, hanging on to dear life, to try to stay in the playoff race. That's not what this season, with this roster, with these adjustments, with what they did in this past offseason, this is not where this team is supposed to be. What they did yesterday shouldn't have been on the table. Think about this for a second. If the team played the way that they were built to play, the way that they're supposed to play talent-wise, the 2031 pick isn't even a topic of conversation. It's a non-starter. The only reason why we're here is because of how poorly this team has played. And yet this front office and this owner said the way we fix this is by digging the hole deeper. The way we get out of this is by committing for longer. Because yesterday, you know what you signed up for, Matt Ishbia? You know what you signed up for, James Jones? Do you know what you signed up for, Suns fan? Now, you didn't have a say, but you know what you got signed up for yesterday? Is 2.5 more seasons of this. You got signed up for the rest of this year, you got signed up for next year, and you got signed up for the year after that. Why do I say that? Because you know what's coming after they do all these moves? If they land Jimmy Butler, it's coming with a fancy brand new contract extension. Do you know what's also coming after they make all these moves? A brand new fancy contract extension for Kevin Durant. At least the next 2.5 seasons, you are going to watch this group try to win a championship. And you might watch this team blow through more coaches. You might watch this team blow through more role players and bench players. You might watch players come and go like it's a revolving door, but you are going to watch for at least the next 2.5 seasons, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and more than likely, when all said and done, Jimmy Butler. That is what the Phoenix Suns signed up for yesterday, and that is what they are going to continue to sign up for when they make all of these other moves. They have committed to the next 2.5 seasons. They have committed to thinking this is the best way out. And I couldn't disagree with them more. I outlined the case to you yesterday. This team has a leadership problem. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not viewing Jimmy Butler as the savior to their leadership issues. My guy wanted out of Miami, got suspended for 7 games, and was, wearing Phoenix Suns shoelaces? Or shoes? I forget what it was. There's shoelaces with Bradley Beal. It might have been shoelaces with Jimmy Butler. I forget the difference. Producer Dylan, if you could please, Jimmy Butler was wearing something Phoenix Suns related. It was either shoelaces or shoes, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't throw Bradley Beal under the bus as well. Shoes. So shoes. So we have now shoelaces with Bradley Beal and shoes with Jimmy Butler. That's what we have. That's what the Phoenix Suns season has been boiled down to. Shoes and shoelaces. I told you yesterday, this team has a culture problem, and I will believe it when I see it, but I don't think Jimmy Butler is the person that this team needs to look to as their North Star for culture, for leadership. If you bring in Jimmy Butler, you kind of bring in some of the same issues that you had with Bradley Beal. Health is a question mark. He is getting older. This isn't a younger player that you're bringing in to try to fix this, to be a part of the big three. And so this team watched their big three fail. And they have decided, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to change who the big three is. We're just going to have a new big three. Same as the old big three, but different. This time, trust us. This time, it's going to work. Forget what you saw last time. This new big three, this is where it's at. Now, we made a mistake with the last big three, but this one, trust us. Trust us on this one. That's what the Phoenix Suns have signed up for. You can always hop in the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube stream is a way for you to join the show, have your thoughts be heard. We shouted out Michael earlier as well, the only Suns fan that we've seen so far that is potentially happy about this. We've got 20 hooks in the chat as well saying who goes the other way in a Jimmy trade, and that's where we're at right now, right? They haven't done it yet, but the tease for the segment, I'll read it again. They haven't done it yet, but it's clear what they were trying to do. The reason why that's the tease is because it's so complicated. They have to get other people involved. It's why yesterday they acquired 3 first-round picks. They have to entice somebody, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it's the 4th or 5th team that gets involved in this. They have to figure out a way to land Bradley Beal somewhere where he's willing to move his no-trade clause and a team that's willing to take him on, and they got to use the draft picks to kind of just take the deal over the top, to sweeten the deal, to just be that little added incentive to have a team be willing to take on that contract. That contract is a disaster. And so you got to have a team, right? When teams try to trade up in the NFL draft, you just add that little extra, just a cherry on top. The Phoenix Suns need to use these additional first-round picks that they were able to swing yesterday. They had to make those picks the cherry on top, the sprinkles on top of the cupcake. That's what they needed to do. That's what they are going to do. And so a 4th team is going to be involved to make sure everybody can stay cap compliant, to make sure everybody can stay under the aprons that they want to stay under and just help facilitate this whole thing. But this is going to be one of the more complicated trades in NBA history when it gets done. And the Phoenix Suns, by doing so, are committing. They are looking at you in the eye, and they're saying, trust us. Forget what you've seen for the last year and a half and sign up for another 2.5 years of it. The remaining 40 games of this season, and at least 2 more seasons, because they're not done when they make a trade. There's contract extensions that are going to be handed out. There's more roster stuff that will be handled. There are other moves that will be made. Grayson Allen might be on the move. Yusuf Nurkic might be on the move. Other role players might find their way out as the Suns try to build a roster. But the Suns yesterday committed. They signed on the dotted line that they believe they can still win a championship. They told you yesterday they still believe a championship is in their future. They told you that they still believe their championship window is wide open. I'd argue it's slammed shut. I would argue, you know how sometimes you go to an Airbnb or a hotel and you can't open the window? I would argue that that's the Phoenix Suns right now. Their window doesn't open. It doesn't work. It's broken. The window is, you can see through it, and the glass is there, but it doesn't open or close. It's stuck. We got to call the maintenance person to help fix the window because it doesn't open or close. That's the Phoenix Suns right now. That's where they're at. And so I'm sorry. I am not going to all of a sudden change my tune and change my position. I've told you for weeks now, I don't think this team is a Jimmy Butler away from winning a championship. Does Jimmy provide a little bit more stuff than Bradley Beal does? Yes. But this team has a culture problem. They have a leadership problem. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant have been here for a couple of years, and it hasn't worked. Guess what? Those 2 guys are still here. Those 2 guys still hanging out. Those 2 guys still out there. My biggest criticism with the 2024-2025 Phoenix Suns is I don't think they're an actual team. And I don't know if bringing in a guy who tried to force his way out of Miami and is more than likely going to force his way out of Miami and not being a team guy is the solution to the Phoenix Suns not being a team. I'm sorry. Sorry for not getting on board with this. But I think what the Suns did and what they are going to do here over the coming days and weeks ahead of the February 6th trade deadline, they are going to set their franchise back a decade. That's how impactful I think this move is. Moving a 2031 unprotected pick and committing at least the next 2.5 seasons, and it might be longer because Durant has, one more year left on his deal after this one with the extension? Jimmy's going to get probably a 2 or 3 year extension after this year. And I don't think your championship odds get better and better the older and older these guys get. Do you guys know? Does anybody out there know? The YouTube stream, the phone number, 480-864-1060. Anybody within the sound of my voice, do you know what the current odds for the Suns are to make the playoffs? 5.6%. Those are their odds to make the playoffs right now. That's their chances. And so you are rolling the dice in this big way for a 5.6% chance just to make the playoffs. Sure, acquiring Jimmy Butler might make it go up, and you might win some basketball games, and you might be able to sneak into the playoffs. But that's not what this move is about. We've got a lot more because we've spent hour number 1 focused on Jimmy Butler. I think there's more under the hood here. I will explain to you what that is at the top of hour number 2. That's next, the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Hour number 2 of the lunch break. Appreciate you being here. A fun hour number 1 of the show. A lot of Suns talk. More Suns talk on the way. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to hop in. Also, a wonderful reason for you to hop over on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel and hop into the live stream is I'm in there during the break. Talking to people. We're going back and forth. We've got all sorts of different stuff going on in there. So another place for you to hang out with us here today on the program. Now, we spent hour number 1, a lot of hour number 1, talking about Jimmy Butler. That's obviously where the focus is. The Phoenix Suns traded 1 draft pick into 3 draft picks. They are landing those picks to then trade for Jimmy Butler. 4-team trades, reportedly. Bradley Beal. That is obviously where everybody's focus goes to. That is where everybody's attention is highlighted. That's not all they might be up to. Because you trade 1 asset into 3 assets, it gives you a lot of flexibility. How much flexibility? Bobby Marks, we've talked about you a lot here today. Please explain.
So how do you take a 2031 first and break it up into three different draft assets? How you do it is you make a phone call to the Utah Jazz or maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Brooklyn Nets, teams that are loaded with first-round picks, and they say, I'll give you our 31 unprotected for 3 first-round picks, okay? 1 in 2025, which is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is at 29 or 30. The least favorable in 2027 of Utah, Mini, or Cleveland. And in 2029, least favorable of Utah, Cleveland, and Minnesota. The Minnesota, if it's 6 to 30.
So you turn 1 pick into 3 picks. And so now you have those picks, and you can take multiple swings at this.
And what that does is that unlocks a lot of different optionality as far as what we have available to go out and make a trade. Instead of having 1 crack at the apple, we've got 3 cracks at the apple. Instead of taking 1 big bite out of the pizza pie, we can take 3 bites out of the pizza pie here. And that's what Phoenix has done.
The Phoenix Suns, before yesterday, had multiple problems. They had a Bradley Beal problem. They had a Jimmy Butler problem, and they had a Yusuf Nurkic problem. Those are the 3 that I want to focus on. Those were their problems. And those problems, they had 2 draft picks to fix them. A 2025 second that they got back in the Nick Richards deal, and the 2031 unprotected first-round pick. When you have limited draft capital, the way the Suns had limited draft assets that were movable, you can't do all of those things. So what do? You turn 1 pick into 3 picks so that it's easier to trade Yusuf Nurkic's contract. It's easier to find somebody that is willing to take on Bradley Beal's deal. And it's easier to put something in front of the Miami Heat that they're more interested in because we know they are not taking on Bradley Beal's salary. That's what the Suns did yesterday. They got these picks not just for Jimmy Butler. But I think they got these picks to explore, hey, what would Yusuf Nurkic get back if we added a first-round pick to it? Because he still has some time left on that contract after this year, so it's not an expiring contract just yet. Hey, if a team wanted Grayson Allen and we attached a first-round pick, what would that get us back in a deal? Because remember, the Suns, as a second-apron team, can't aggregate salaries. It has to be 1-for-1. They can continue to just spend $168 million projected tax bill, but they can't aggregate salaries. So how do you make a deal better for an opposing team? You have additional first-round picks you can throw in there. You have the cherry on top. And so this opens up, like Bobby Marks said, a world of opportunities. This opens up Yusuf Nurkic. It opens up Grayson Allen. It opens up whatever possibilities. The Suns now today, now we know what the main focus is. We know that the North Star is getting Jimmy Butler. But today, they are much better equipped to listen on more things and have more possibilities to improve their team than they did yesterday. And so when you see reports that the Suns didn't do this with one specific move in mind, I push back a little bit. They have Jimmy Butler in mind, but they opened up more possibilities. And so they are at least, I think, going to cover all their bases here if they want to do this the right way, because you've already you've gone overboard. You've crossed the line. So there's no going back. You've traded the 2031 unprotected. So you might as well trade all 3 of these picks that you got, or the 3 picks that you're able to move, and go get a bunch of stuff, right? You might as well just break through the wall. But you should explore everything. There's a rumor about a Patrick Williams deal because Patrick Williams is a similar dollar amount to Yusuf Nurkic, but there's multiple years left on that deal. And so Yusuf Nurkic, and now you add one of these first-round picks that you just got in this deal. And so now the Bulls have a similar salary in Nurkic. They get a first-round pick out of the deal, but they're not paying Nurkic for as long as Patrick Williams would cost them. And for the Phoenix Suns, it's a similar salary asset, and it's a player that's a younger player that fits into the rotation. That's one unique way that they can use these assets. So I always thought, when I saw the deal yesterday, my immediate thought was they got 3 picks. One of them was going to go to Miami. One of them was going to go to the team that was taking Bradley Beal. And one of them was going to be used to get Yusuf Nurkic off of the Phoenix Suns. That was my gut initial reaction when I saw the trade yesterday, that they got 3 first-round picks. Now, they might take 2 of those picks, and they might go to Miami, and Bradley Beal might go someplace else, and other picks might go with Bradley Beal. But all in all, 2 of the picks, I think, are going to be involved in some way with the Bradley Beal side. And that 3rd pick that they've gotten, it's going to be moved with Yusuf Nurkic or with Grayson Allen or with some other asset that the Suns will try to move to improve their roster. So this is not just Jimmy Butler. Yesterday opened up a world of possibilities. It's now up to James Jones. It's up to Matt Ishbia to follow those scenarios, to pull on those strings of yarn, to see what options are in front of them. Could there be teams that will want those pick swaps? I don't know. There aren't a lot of teams that could have done what Utah did yesterday. Oklahoma City, Brooklyn, probably the other couple of teams. Houston, maybe. But Houston is saving those picks to trade for a player, so I don't know if they would have played ball. Oklahoma City and Utah have a ton of picks. And speaking of Utah, because I don't know when we're going to get to this. Utah and all of this, I think they did a fantastic job. Here's what Bobby Marks said about what the job Utah did yesterday.
For Utah, bravo. A terrific trade for the Utah Jazz. Quality over quantity. 13 first-round picks coming in. They looked at, okay, we've got a Cleveland pick, which is at 30 right now. Can we trade that with 2 other things and get the golden ticket of draft picks, which is that 2031 Phoenix first? The best of draft equity that any team can have is now in the hands of the Utah Jazz. And they've got 11 first-round picks in the next 7 years, including 2 this year. 1 could be a lottery pick based on what happens in Minnesota. So there is a lot to like if you're Utah as far as from a draft pick accumulation.
Now, Utah's not trying to go for it. Utah's one of the worst teams in the West right now, but they have set themselves up very nicely to when they're ready. When they're ready to go full Matt Ishbia, when they're ready to go full Suns, they've got all this draft capital to be able to do it. And they dealt yesterday from their surplus. They still have their own picks in 25 and 27 and 29. This was just the extra stuff that they had. Such a beautiful job of accumulating assets. Now, the product on the court, that's not great. They're not very good, but you can see a vision. You can see the direction that they're going in. And so I didn't want us to go the entire day today without talking about this from the other side, from what Utah's getting. I think this was a rare, good job by both sides. I think good job by the Suns for getting creative in this way. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I wouldn't have done it. But the moment you're going to do it, I like what they did here. Instead of just using the pick to send to Miami for Jimmy Butler, they got creative in what they might be able to turn it into. Now, ultimately, all 3 picks might just go and be part of one deal. I don't think so. But I love the creativity from the Suns side of things. And from Utah, you got an unprotected asset that you think is going to be the crown jewel, that you think is going to be the belle of the ball in 2031, because the Suns are going to be in a complete rebuild at that point. They don't know the term rebuild right now. They won't even utter the word. But 2031, they might be full-on rebuild at that point. And you would be primed to have an asset that maybe your team's ready to go. Maybe you have a team that's got a bunch of players. You've hit on draft after draft after draft, and now you have a 2031 pick that you can just flip around and trade for a superstar because you have an unprotected asset that isn't yours, and you still have your own pick. It's beautiful. So a nice job by the Utah Jazz. I think there's more here. I think we are going to see all 3 of these picks be utilized in very creative ways. The Suns already showed their creativity in what they did yesterday by swinging the 1 for 3. Now I think you're going to see that creativity in what they attach these picks to. Bradley Beal, maybe Yusuf Nurkic, maybe Grayson Allen. But all three of those picks, I think, are going to be sent out. The Suns yesterday unlocked their next 6 drafts. They can move 3 of those 6, and they can't be in consecutive years. But they opened up their entire draft capital, and they can go to a team and say, which 3 do you want? Or which one do you want? And they can start to piece together what this stuff looks like. So everybody's going to focus on Jimmy Butler. Everybody's going to keep eye on that. There's other stuff under the hood, and it's Yusuf Nurkic as well. I think he's as good as gone, and the Patrick Williams rumors are out there. That is one potential avenue that makes sense, but there will be others. Other stuff will pop out over the course of the next couple of days ahead of the February 6th trade deadline because the Suns are now open for business. They've got a bunch of picks that they can move. Coming up on the other side of the break, Matt Ishbia is putting it all on the line. Talk about that next here. The lunch break, KDUS, AM 1060. Welcome back. Lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Also on the KDUS AM 1060 app. Make sure you download that today. Your opportunity to take the station with you on the go. You can take the lunch break with you wherever you may be. You can also listen online. You can also catch the video version of the show. KDUS AM 1060 on YouTube. There's a lot of basketball going on in the chat right now. Rightfully so. We're having a Suns-related show, but we are deep in the basketball weeds. We're talking Raptors. We're talking potential trade targets for the Suns. It is the wild, wild west in the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube chat in the best possible way. So another way for you to hop on board with us over there. I said in the tease, Matt Ishbia is putting everything on the line with this move and the moves that are coming. Matt Ishbia is saying to you that he knows better. He's telling you that he knows what is best for this basketball team, more than you do. That what you've seen through 42 games this season is not really a true indicator of what this team is capable of. And that he thinks the way out is to dig further and further. He doesn't see it the way I see it and the way I think some of you see it, that this is a failed experiment. Matt Ishbia is quadrupling down, although I don't even think that applies even more. I don't even know what's after that. But Matt Ishbia is putting his reputation as the owner of the Phoenix Suns on the line here. And I said it a couple of weeks ago. It bears a reminder now. It's easy to be the owner when you first get to town and you make the big splashes. It's hard to be the owner when adversity comes. It's easy to have everybody on your side when you, on the first day that you take over as the owner of the Phoenix Suns, you push the Kevin Durant deal over the finish line. It's easy in that first offseason, you make another big splash for Bradley Beal. It's easy to generate fan support. It's easy to be viewed as the new guy that's doing things the right way because you're doing them differently than the last guy that was in charge was doing them. It's easy. It's difficult when adversity comes. It's difficult when you have to make tough but logical, reasonable, rational decisions. This is an irrational decision. I don't know how you can watch the basketball product that is on the floor right now and say what Matt Ishbia did yesterday and what this team is going to continue to do over the next couple of weeks ahead of the February 6th trade deadline is a rational thought process. They have a 5.6% chance of making the playoffs according to Pro Basketball Reference. 5.6. Less than a 6% chance of making the playoffs. And this owner said, I'm willing to take that 6% bet. That's just to make the playoffs. That's not to win a title. And by trading for Jimmy Butler and by making the moves that this team is going to make over the coming weeks, it is championship or bust. There is nothing else. If we get to the end of the road and this team doesn't win a championship, it is an abject failure. Non-negotiable. If we get 3 years down the road and this team isn't hoisting up the Larry O'Brien trophy as NBA champions, and I'm here to tell you, I don't think it's going to happen. If they don't, they would have wasted 5 to 7 years, and it will take another 5 to 7 years to dig out of it. The Phoenix Suns, as of today, do not control their own first-round pick for the next 7 NBA drafts. 7. Meaning they are always going to pick towards the back. They are always going to pick towards the end of the first round with all of these pick swaps. They are never going to see it through if they have a bad year over the next 7. That pick is always going to go someplace else. Somebody else is going to reap the benefit of that. So you're never going to be able to land that generational prospect. You're never going to be able to land a top young star to build your next core around. So if you don't win a championship, you would have wasted the last, 2.5 seasons? The next 2.5 seasons, potentially, at a minimum. And then the next 5 to 7 to dig yourself out of this mess. That is the roll of the dice that Matt Ishbia is taking. And I want to compare Matt Ishbia to another team. And this might be against everything that you believe in as an Arizona sports fan today. But I'm going to make a comparison to the LA Dodgers. Just bear with me. The LA Dodgers are pushing the envelope. The LA Dodgers are going to run the highest payroll they've ever run. It might be the highest payroll in the history of the sport, in the history of professional sports. And they're signing free agent after free agent, player after player, superstar after superstar, and they don't care. So much so that you have other people in the game, well respected, saying that the Dodgers are ruining baseball. Matt Ishbia is going to have a $168 projected million tax bill. Matt Ishbia is a second apron team with the Phoenix Suns. Matt Ishbia has brought in big money superstar after big money superstar and is going to continue to bring in big money superstar after big money superstar in his pursuit to winning a championship. He is, on paper, exactly what you want in an owner. And yet nobody's talking about Matt Ishbia as ruining basketball. At least not in the way they're talking about the Dodgers buying a championship and ruining baseball in that way. There are some people that I think are tired of the Phoenix Suns. Bill Simmons talked about this a couple of weeks ago on his podcast. What's the difference? The difference is everybody looks at what the Dodgers are doing and they go, that's smart. You got a 23-year-old starter in Roki Sasaki. You got the best two relievers on the market in Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. Last year, you signed two megastars in Shohei Ohtani and Yoshiomu Yamamoto, and you got better at key positions. People look at Matt Ishbia, and they see Bradley Beal, and they see Kevin Durant, and now they're going to see Jimmy Butler. And they view Matt Ishbia, and they say, you're not buying a championship. You're trying to, but you're not. Because you're not running this team the way it's supposed to be run. You're not making the moves that are putting this team closer to winning a championship. 5.6% chance to make the playoffs. And Matt Ishbia is going to potentially set this team back a decade in order to see that through. Because don't forget, next year, Kevin Durant's a year older. Jimmy Butler is a year older. Devin Booker is a year older. It doesn't get easier to win a championship as these players age. It doesn't get easier to go through the Western Conference as the other teams around you get better. It doesn't get easier. The easiest it's going to be is this year. The easiest it was going to be was last year. And the further and further down this rabbit hole Matt Ishbia chooses to take the Phoenix Suns, and he has taken them on the full ride, the harder and harder it gets. The Suns told you yesterday they know better. The Suns told you yesterday that what you're watching isn't indicative of a team that is a failed experiment. And yet the group, the owner, the front office that put what you saw in Cleveland a couple days ago on the floor, what you saw against Memphis, what you've seen for 42 games this year, that have put that team on the floor, that has led to this. So they are part of the problem. They put together this team that has failed up until this point. And they want you to believe that, no, this time we've got the solution. This time we've got the answer. I know we thought we had the answer last time, but we're wrong. This time, though, this is the move. These are the moves that we need to make. You become an unreliable narrator. You become the boy who cried wolf. You no longer are a trustworthy source. You are not somebody that people are going to look at and say they know what they're doing. In fact, the Phoenix Suns right now are in some ways the laughingstock of the NBA. There are people that are around the NBA, just on social media, NBA fans that are pointing at the Phoenix Suns and going, what are you doing? You are the only team that is interested in paying Jimmy Butler that contract. You are the only team that is viewing this experiment and saying, oh, no, it hasn't failed. We just made a wrong decision. It's okay. We'll just keep doing it. You're the only ones. Nobody else is pointing in the direction that you want to point to? Nobody. I can't find a single person in this building. I can't find a single Suns fan that I know that is excited about what the Suns did yesterday. But they are going to roll the dice. And Matt Ishbia is putting everything on the line. Because if this fails, and it can go south in a hurry, Matt Ishbia is not going to be this beloved owner that he was the moment he got here and traded for Kevin Durant. And we are already on that slippery slope. It's one thing to have an owner that's willing to invest, that is willing to spend, that is willing to pay the luxury tax bill that Matt Ishbia is going to pay. That's one thing. It's another thing to do all of those things and them not work, and to continue to dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. 480-864-1060 is the phone number. You can also hop in the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube live stream. Coming up on the other side, we have spent an hour and a half, 90-plus minutes, talking about the Phoenix Suns. There's a basketball game tonight. We haven't talked about it at all. Let's do that next. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. You know there's a basketball game tonight? Phoenix Suns are going to play. They're going to finish up this road trip. They are, 2-2 on this road trip? Wins over Washington and Detroit, losses to Atlanta and Cleveland. So you win this one tonight, you achieve exactly what we asked you to achieve. We said, hey, come away from this road trip 3-2. Come back above 500, 22-21. then maybe, just maybe, we'll start to have a conversation. Now, we have to have the conversation because they're going for it. So they're pushing everything in the middle. So there is no what should they do. They're just going to do. They're just going to go out there and just do stuff. They have to play a basketball game tonight with all of this surrounding them. How focused is this team going to be tonight? Now, Bradley Beal may not have been asked to waive his no-trade clause yet, but you know he's paying attention to everything that's going on. You know he's hearing stuff. You know that Yusuf Nurkic, I know he's not with the team, but that's going to have an impact. Grayson Allen might be going. How can there be focus for tonight's game knowing that the roster that we see tonight is going to look so different by February 6th? Now, the Nets played a tough game last night, a 99-95 loss to the New York Knicks. So they're playing a back-to-back. It was a tough game against the Knicks, and the Knicks wear you down. Tom Thibodeau, defense, the games turn into a grind. And so that's wear and tear. So feels nice for the Suns. Yes, they are still on this road trip, but the last time they played was Monday, so they've had some time off. They were only going from Cleveland to Brooklyn. And so you feel like that's in your corner, that's in your favor. But I just question how focused this team is going to be. And I can't blame them if they don't have focus. I can't blame anybody for not knowing what the team's going to look like in 24 hours, let alone 2 weeks from now. And here is the worst part of it all. They've only got 40 games left on the calendar. You can't afford to not have any focus tonight. You can't afford a basketball game where you're not at 100%. They need this one. They need a lot of them the rest of the way. Fourth hardest schedule the remainder of the season in the NBA. Fourth. One of the easiest games they have left on their schedule tonight. I know I tell you that I don't use this term because it doesn't truthfully apply. They got to have this one tonight. I don't want to say must win, but they got to have this one tonight. Brooklyn is 14-30. They just played a tough game last night against the Knicks. Close game down to the wire, so they're playing hard for 4 quarters. You're 21-21. You cannot come back from this road trip 2-3 and be 1 game below 500 while you basically mortgage your entire future, and you're going to bring in Jimmy Butler here in the coming days and weeks. You have to have this basketball game tonight. You have a sour taste in your mouth after what Cleveland did to you. I mean, they smacked you around. I don't even want to say for 4 quarters because it was over in the middle of the 3rd quarter. You need tonight's basketball game. 3-2 on the road trip, taking care of business against a bad team, coming back above 500. It would wipe the taste out of your mouth from the bad loss, the embarrassing loss to Cleveland. And being 1 game above 500, maybe, just maybe, you can start to justify a little bit more what this team is going to choose to do over the next couple of days. You lose? Think about this. You lose on Monday. Your reaction to losing on Monday, and I know it's not directly correlated, but your reaction to Monday was yesterday doing what you did with the 2031 first-round pick. And now, your response after that, after basically, you've got a team right now. You've got a team. Think about this for a second. You've got a basketball team that is 500. Can't get out of their own way. Tripping over each other. We got shoelaces. We've got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker just going AWOL. We've got a bench that just can't provide enough consistent scoring. We don't know what this team is. Not sure. Who's the leader? Where's the culture? Where's the season going to go? Everything's up in the air, right? We said, might have been on Monday's show, might have been at the end of yesterday's show, about the cloud that is hovering over the Phoenix Suns. Well, yesterday, Matt Ishbia tried to remove that cloud. He tried to say, no. I don't care that we're 500. I don't care that there's a lot up in the air right now. I believe in you. I don't think this was the intent, but it was the ultimate message. Trading the 2031 first-round pick was the ultimate message to this team of, I still believe in you. I still believe in what this team can accomplish. So think about, Monday happens, you get embarrassed by Cleveland. Tuesday, your owner, after getting embarrassed, makes this move, the last thing that they can do to try to salvage this championship window, which we told you, it's not broken, it's just completely shut, and the window won't open or close. It's just stuck. It's stuck. Your owner made that type of move yesterday to try to tell you, we believe in you. We still think there is a future for you. There are championship aspirations. If you go out in the immediate response to that game and you don't beat the 14-30 Brooklyn Nets, what are we doing? What are we doing? You have every reason for tonight's game to be a one-sided, lopsided affair. I don't care that Bradley Beal's questionable tonight. I don't care. You have everything in your corner. You have a bad game that you're trying to rid the bad taste out of your mouth. You have an owner that has given you the ultimate sign of support by trading the one remaining asset that the team had available to them. You can't get a bigger endorsement than the one the Suns got yesterday from their owner and their front office by making this move. And if you respond by losing to Brooklyn tonight, you would prove everything that I've said about this team true. You would prove you don't have a leader, that you don't have a culture. You don't have a championship culture. You aren't a championship caliber team. You're probably not even a playoff team. The groundwork is laid for you to have a nice bounce back performance tonight. If you can't get up for this game, and I get it, there's all sorts of reasons to not have focus, but there are all sorts of reasons to have the focus because your front office is supporting you. Your owner is supporting you. We saw what happened in Cleveland, but don't worry. We're going to make this trade. We're going to trade the 2031 unprotected first-round pick. We are going to give up our future 6 years from now, completely gone. We're not going to control a single first-round pick for the next 7 seasons. And we are going to take those picks, and you know what we're doing. Even though we haven't done it yet, you know what we're doing. We're getting Jimmy Butler. We're going to make moves. We are going to invest further into this team. We are not giving up. We are not hitting the big red button in the middle. Rebuild is not a word we use in this building. That's what the Suns decided yesterday. And so if you're Kevin Durant, if you're Devin Booker, if you're Bradley Beal, if you play, if you're anybody on that team, Nick Richards, Tyus Jones, Ryan Dunn, anybody, if after that, after the last 48 hours, you can't find the energy, you can't find the effort level, you can't find that little bit more to make sure you win this basketball game tonight, how are we supposed to believe that getting Jimmy Butler fixes this? How are we supposed to believe that now with 39 games to go in the season, and that's the other little secret about this, there is urgency for the Phoenix Suns. Now, Producer Dylan, are we okay? We good so far? No trades? Nothing happening so far? I've seen some NFL stuff. So we're going to save that for the leftovers, but I'm just going to check one more time. I think we're okay for right now. You've got 39 games after tonight. You are outside of the playoff picture right now. You don't have the runway. You don't have the wiggle room. You don't have the time to waste finishing this deal. This deal has to get done immediately. Because with every game that passes, and every day we move closer to February 6th, and every game that gets taken off the board for Jimmy Butler to maybe help the Phoenix Suns is a waste. Because Jimmy's going to get here, and it's going to take some time. I'm going to tell you, it's probably going to be clunky. You already, after tonight, because he's not going to be available for tonight's game, even if they make the trade right now, right this second, he's not going to be able to play in this game tonight. So you're going to have 39 games at a maximum. How many of those games are going to be perfect? How many of those games are going to be this team operating at its full potential? By the time he gets here, by the time he gets acclimated, is it 30? Is it 25? How many games truly is it? You don't have the wiggle room. So you know what? Because you don't have that wiggle room, you have to have tonight's game. You have no choice. Do I dare say it, Producer Dylan? Do I dare? I said it on Monday. Do I dare do it again? All right, here we go. I've got like a minute left. We've got time. I don't want to come in here tomorrow and do this, and we'll do it. We're going to do the full bit here. I don't want to do this.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
I don't want to do that and have to talk about a Phoenix Suns loss. I don't want to do it. Because it would prove everything about this team true. And it would prove that Tuesday was the biggest mistake this franchise has made in a really long time. So beat Brooklyn tonight, please. Make yesterday meaningful. And then we'll see where things go from there. We'll see what you're able to do in the trade market after that. Coming up on the other side, I promise, it is my promise to you, there will not be a single basketball story in the leftovers today. That is my promise to you. We've done 6 segments today on basketball, and I feel like we haven't even really unpacked everything. I feel like we've done 6 really solid segments on just one thing that the Suns did yesterday, but it has so many layers to it, and it's going to continue to have layers over the coming days. So we appreciate you being here, and we hope that you stick with us here the rest of this Suns season and everything that's going to happen here over the coming weeks. But we are going to do the leftovers next. All of the stories that we didn't get to, and there's a lot of them because we talked about one thing for the majority of the show. We will do that on the other side. It's the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Back to wrap up today's edition of the lunch break. The leftovers. I don't think I've done my normal allotment of cheap plugs for stuff today. So we got Jim Rome at the top of the hour. I normally get to that at some point during the show. I think I have, but top of the hour, Jim Rome, 1 to 4 here, KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can take us with you on the go. And the podcast. If you missed anything from today's show, and there was a lot of Sun stuff today, just search The Lunch Break wherever you get your podcasts, and please follow us over there, subscribe, whatever word is used at that podcast place, whether it's Apple or Spotify. I don't know anymore if they use follow, subscribe, or you just hit a big plus button. I don't know anymore. So whatever the option is, could you please do that for us for The Lunch Break, and you can catch up on anything you missed over there as well. The leftovers. We've got a bunch of stuff here today. We told you yesterday in the leftovers about the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I laid my predictions out. I told you that I thought 3 guys were going to get in. And you know who got in? The 3 guys I told you were going to get in. Ichiro, Billy Wagner, CeCe Sabathia into the Hall of Fame. The guy that just nearly missed, Carlos Beltran. Nearly missed. Or nearly made it. Just missed. And Ichiro, nearly unanimous. 394 votes. He got 393 of them. There I know there's this push on social media to find out who the one person is that didn't vote for Ichiro. And here's what I will tell you. If there is one reason that I could get behind. If you didn't vote for Ichiro because you knew that he was going to get enough votes elsewhere. And you left him off your ballot because you wanted to get somebody else on there to try to help them get to the 5% to stay on. I think that's okay. Now, the risk you run is if everybody thinks that way, then the guy misses completely. But that is the reason why I think the rules are on how many people you can vote for is flawed. If you think there are 12 Hall of Famers in a given class, you should be able to vote for 12 Hall of Famers. If you think there are 3 Hall of Famers in a given class, you should vote for 3. There should not be a max on this so that people don't have to play these stupid reindeer games to try to make sure that they get people the certain percentage to be able to keep them on there. Vote for who you want to vote for. And so if that's the reason, I'm fine. There's no other reason, though. I mean, he's one of the greatest baseball players in the history of the game. I mean, just awesome. Joined by one of the best closers of all time in Billy Wagner and a 250-plus win starting pitcher, which you don't see anymore in CC Sabathia. So that, the Hall of Fame in 2025. Now, I didn't think I would ever utter this sentence out loud. But in a hockey game last night, there were nachos on the ice. And those nachos directly led to a goal being scored. Do yourself a favor, if you have not seen this. It was in an NHL game last night in which nachos found their way onto the ice. And they directly aided into a goal. The goalie for the Capitals, this is a headline, Capitals Thompson, distracted by nachos on ice on Oilers' goal. I mean, what are we doing here? Come on. Somebody didn't do their job correctly. There was a tray of cheese-covered nachos, that's the only way to have nachos, that were thrown onto the ice while Corey Perry of the Oilers was driving and scoring. The Oilers skated into the Capital zone with the nachos already having been tossed onto the ice. And this is the sentence from the story. The Capitals goalie immediately started pointing at the nachos with his glove while complaining to the on-ice officials. Some of his teammates joined in the protest. That's a sentence that I just read in 2025. Nachos on the ice led to a goal. There's a rule for this. Rule 63.5, apparently, that says if objects thrown onto the ice and spectator interference says, quote, in the event that objects are thrown onto the ice that interfere with the progress of the game, the referee shall blow the whistle and stop the play, and the puck shall be faced off at a face-off spot in the zone nearest to the spot where the play is stopped. We have rules for this. We have the nacho rule. But the nachos apparently didn't impact the play, so nothing going on there. So nachos on the ice last night. The Jets have hired a head coach. No, not the Winnipeg Jets in hockey. The New York Jets. They have hired their head coach. He was in the building yesterday. He left the building yesterday. Everybody kind of was nervous once he left the building in Jets land. Oh, no. They said that they weren't going to let him leave the building without a contract, but he left. He went back. It feels like he went back on Woody Johnson's private plane to just get his things in order because he's moving. Because Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator, formerly of the Detroit Lions, is now going to head up the New York Jets. The former Jet played there under Bill Parcells, is now going to take over there in New York. And after having a defensive coordinator as their head coach in Robert Saleh, the Jets dipped back into that bucket. And Aaron Glenn is going to be there, and I think for a lot of reasons he makes a lot of sense there. They need a culture setter, and having somebody who's been there, done that, who's been in New York, who is going to be able to get more out of this defense, I think is a good move. That now leaves us with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It now leaves us with the Dallas Cowboys. It now leaves us with the New Orleans Saints, and it leaves us with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders hired their GM today, hired somebody from the Bucs organization. No, not Mike Greenberg, who is being long rumored for a bunch of these jobs. But they hired their new GM, so they are now on a head coaching search, and so there are a couple of teams left. Dallas, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Jags. So 4 teams left. Looks like Robert Saleh is going to have a second interview there in Jacksonville, so it looks like he might go there. Mike McCarthy now might be the focus in New Orleans. I mean, they certainly wanted to talk to Aaron Glenn. They're not going to get that chance with Glenn going to New York to be the head coach of the Jets. So do they pivot to Mike McCarthy? What does Dallas do? They might do the Dion thing. What do the Raiders do? They were probably interested in Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, not doing either of those, with Ben Johnson being introduced as the Bears head coach today. So we've got 4 teams left, still looking to hire head coaches, and still some big names out there. So we'll see what the Saints, Jags, Raiders, and Cowboys do. Last story here for you. I think. We'll see. See how much time we have left. ASU basketball, it's a roller coaster ride. I have a lot of friends who went to the university who are in media, and they follow this team and cover this team and talk about this team. And Bobby Hurley, it's an up and down ride. Right? When Bobby Hurley was hired to be the head basketball coach here at ASU, everybody thought, man, you're getting somebody that was at Duke, highest of success there as a player, was at a mid-major, took them to heights, and now is going to come here and restore ASU to Pac-12 basketball prominence. That's what everybody thought at the time. And truthfully, Bobby has never really gotten to the level that I think people thought he could get to. And this class this year that he had, this group that he had, is supposed to be one of the more talented groups he's been able to put together. And it has been a roller coaster ride. There are times where you look at the team and you understand why everybody thought what they did about ASU. And then there are times where they play and you go, what is going on? And yesterday is one of those days where they went on the road and they played West Virginia, who was ranked 23rd, coming off of their big win over number 2 Iowa State, a West Virginia team that was playing good basketball. And ASU walked in there and they won the basketball game to get to 11-7 on the season. They're 2-5 now in the Big 12. That's been the problem. You make this move to the Big 12, and it's working. It worked in football. You won the Big 12 championship. Not so much in basketball. You're struggling a little bit with all this talent. And they go in there and they get a nice victory on the road. What does it mean? I don't know. They are famously always a team that is on the bubble. We'll do something live here on the show. I haven't done this in a little bit. We'll do some bracketology. Let's see where the Sun Devils are at. Now, I'm looking at Joe Lunardi's bracketology for 2025. This was updated as of yesterday at 10:30 a.m. So this does not include ASU's win yesterday. So I'm looking at this here. I'm doing this live. I see Arizona. I don't necessarily see Arizona State right now, and I don't see them on the last 4 in, the first 4 out, the next 4 out. They have pushed themselves out. Does this win push them back in? They feel like they are going to be the ultimate bubble team without going on a serious run here in the second half. And so if they don't go on that serious run, if they are a bubble team, if they aren't making, not a championship run, but if they aren't making a solid run into the postseason, when do we start having some conversations, right? Graham Rossini, they're the new AD. He's supported Kenny Dillingham in a big way. Kenny Dillingham has rewarded him with the success that he has, but Graham didn't hire Bobby. Does he potentially look to move on if they don't reach certain expectations or certain milestones? We'll see. Not making the tournament, I think it puts it completely on the table for them to have a conversation about moving on. And speaking of Hurleys, it was Dan Hurley last night in a basketball game that it certainly looked like he told the referee to not big-time him because he is, quote, the best coach in the game. And I cleaned that up a little bit of what Dan said, but it certainly looked like Dan was not happy with the officiating. I can tell you he wasn't happy with the officiating, and he certainly pulled out the "do you know who I am" card, right? You very rarely want to pull that out. It doesn't make you look great, but Dan Hurley certainly looked like he pulled that card out last night. The "excuse me, sir, do you know who I am?" National championship winning coach, almost was the Lakers coach. I'm kind of a big deal. He pulled that out last night. He pulled that card out and just looked at the official and said, "Do you know who I am? Best coach in the game." So it's rare. It's rare to pull that off. But Dan Hurley pulled it off last night. I don't know if he pulled it off. I think there's some people that look at that and they're kind of chuckling today. But he certainly pulled that card out last night in the basketball game. College basketball for me is like a February kind of thing. I use February as my way to kind of get ready for the tournament, get ready for the madness, and get ready for everything that comes with that. And I'll do a bracket every year, regardless of whether or not I've watched a ton of basketball. But I got to tell you, I'm not really, channel surfing on a given night right now to watch. I'm looking at the slate of games tonight to watch Utah and Houston. I'm not really going out of my way to watch Xavier and St. John's tonight. Although both of those include top 20 ranked opponents. St. John's is 20, Houston is 7. So if you're going to pick some games, those might be the ones you want to pick. I promised no basketball, and I got the basketball. I'm sorry. I meant Suns basketball. I meant we weren't going to talk about the Suns. I had to talk about ASU. They pulled off an upset yesterday, beating West Virginia on the road. Potentially the thing that saves their season if they can go on a nice little run here the rest of the way, and then into the Big 12 tournament, and then potentially in the NCAA tournament. I promised no Suns basketball, and I delivered. Tomorrow on the program, you know what we're going to do. We've got a Suns basketball game to recap. We're going to also start to get you ready for the conference championships and whatever else may come our way here in the next 24 hours. Appreciate you being here. Producer Dylan, thank you for all that you do. Everybody, Jim Rome is next. Make it a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See ya!